Refusal to mention the EU makes this election the most dishonest in modern times, warns Lord Heseltine. We're going to read into this more from The Independent, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from The Independent with the headline of Refusal to mention the EU makes this election the most dishonest in modern time, warns Heseltine. As an exclusive poll shows that voters links following living standards and failures on immigration to leaving the EU, Lord Heseltine warns that the election should focus on Brexit. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So, I've spoken a bit about Brexit and the factor that it's going to play in this general election, and I may rinse and repeat some of this that I've said in other videos, but I think this is really important to emphasize here, obviously, is that Brexit will not be the focus of attention at this general election, regardless of how we feel about how it's going and the damage that it's causing to the economy. Among many other things, there is absolutely no question that Brexit is having a very negative impact in the UK. We know it's having a negative impact. We know that there are many problems with it. And we know that by not being a part of the EU single market and customs union, it is hurting many trades, many businesses that are being able to go freely going in, be able to do business with the EU. We also know it's hurting many people who like to go on holiday to the EU and back as well. That's making things a bit more awkward than it should be, so that's also another problem as well. But should it be the main focus and the center of attention? Well, the problem is I have to say no. And the reason why I say no is while yes, the cost of living crisis and our economy is linked to Brexit, it is not the only thing that is the reason why we are in this situation. Yes, of course, it's played a major factor in our standards. There's absolutely no question about that, and I'm not taking Brexit away from it, because I'm just as much as like many of you who are watching who want us to rejoin the EU at some point and rejoin the single market and customs union for the benefit of it, and that's a long way down the road. But I do think there are things. I do think that some of the decisions and policy making that the Conservative Party have been doing for the last 14 years, even before Brexit, have hampered the UK and hampered its economy, and those things have really damaged us. They really haven't done enough when it comes to talking to businesses and sectors when it comes to how they've been able to mitigate their concerns. The trade deals that they have imposed, obviously, from the likes of New Zealand and Australia, have not in any way, shape or form helped, for example, British farmers. They never took, even though we are no longer part of the EU and taking that out, those deals have not benefited British farmers, for example. Whereas could a Labour government who was in a similar situation, would they have made sure that if they secured deals that they would have done it in the interest of protecting our British farmers? Answers on a postcard, please, for example. And of course, on immigration, that was obviously the main topic point of it. Is there things that we can do to reduce immigration, even though that we're not part of the EU? Yes, of course there is. Zoe Gardner, immigration policy expert on this, who knows her stuff, and I do recommend following her on Twitter and checking out her YouTube channel. She has said time and time again that one of the ways we can, one of the things that we should be doing is making it easier for people to be able to. We should be creating legal routes for people to be able to come to the UK. We are making it difficult for ourselves. We have made immigration more tough, made immigration worse for ourselves by leaving the EU. The numbers speak for themselves. We've had more people crossing the boats than ever before. We have more people trying to smuggle in through trucks, and we also have, and as well, this is a government decision, right? They have reduced civil servants within the Home Office, which has meant that we had more immigrants sitting on backlogs and cases there, which means that there's many of them who are simply sitting on being paid by the taxpayer, sitting in hotels, barges, and whatnot. And many of them who their application may get rejected and sent back to their home country, but they're not getting that because the government has reduced the amount of civil servants working in the Home Office to help clear the backlog. So we would have been able to clear a lot more immigrants. If that, again, that's a government decision. Yes, of course, Brexit has played a part in this because when we were a part of the EU and the Single Market Customs Union, we were able to take immigrants and take them back to France, those crossing the Channel. But we can't do that now. We don't have the same deal that we have with the French. So yeah, that's another problem. And obviously, the Windsor Framework has been is at a strain, and the Good Friday Agreement has been kind of strained as well with the whole Brexit thing as well. So to say that it should focus on Brexit is no. I think it's a very bad idea. It would certainly leave a sour taste in people's mouth if it was the vocal point, because many people, yes, some people out there who still just don't want nothing to do with Brexit, don't want to talk about it, don't want to have any conversation with it, whether we agree. We have to also remember that while ourselves here who are listening, whether you're watching this or not, you have to remember that there are people out there who do not give a damn about politics, who are not interested in anything. And if you bring up Brexit, they will just turn around and walk away because they don't want to talk about that, because it was such a potent thing for many people. Remember, relationships were broken, families broke up over Brexit, and many people do not want to go back to that conversation. So that is also another thing. So many people are not ready to even have that conversation, let alone while we understand the faults of Brexit, people are just not ready to have that conversation, even after several years. There will come a time where we will have to make that conversation. We know it's going to have that conversation again. But there will be people out there, many members of the public, who are more concerned about the cost of living crisis, about the healthcare, about the problems with our schools, the high levels of crime, the uncontrolled immigration. The list of crises that we have in goes on. And while Brexit is a factor, it is not going to be the major factor in this. And I think that context really does matter. So let's read more into this, you guys. So Michael Heseltine has warned that 2024's general election campaign will be the most dishonest in modern times because of the refusal of the main parties to debate the consequences of Brexit. Now, I agree with this, that that the main political parties, without a shadow of a doubt, will not have proper debates about the consequences of Brexit. Absolutely, 100% agree with him. But even if they did, I think it would also turn away voters. As I said before, I think that would play a part in it. Will it be the most dishonest in modern times? Absolutely. And again, I don't think anyone here is going to argue that one, with it being the most dishonest of all time. We can't rule out the possibility of Russian interference in this election as well, or Chinese interference for that matter, one of Chinese or Russia. We also can't rule out the possibility of artificial intelligence and many fake audios as well, and fake videos being put out there saying that Keir Starmer said this, or Rishi Sunak implied this, or Ed Davey said this, or Angela Rayner did this. We have to be very, very careful about what videos and audios that you hear online, because it can easily be deep fakes. So we have to be very careful about what we read and what we hear online about politicians, because it can be it's going to be a nasty campaign. We know it's going to be a dirty campaign because the Conservatives have shown it. They showed it with that London Mayoral campaign about how they treated Sadiq Khan, and many people don't like Sadiq Khan, but the people of London just thought Susan Hole was just an incapable candidate. And I said this in the London Mayoral election. If the Conservatives had put in a competent candidate, they would have had a very good chance of beating Sadiq Khan. But they put an idiot as a candidate to challenge. But it was the campaign they did was very dirty. Some of it was bang out of order as well. The former Deputy Prime Minister, who fell out with the Conservatives after leaving the European Union, has written exclusively for The Independent, explaining how the big issues in this general election, the economy, immigration, defence, all need to be debated in the context of the UK's relationship with the EU. But he claimed that Labour and the Conservatives are too scared to discuss Brexit because of the potential impact on their voter bases. Yes, this is exactly what I said. It comes as Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer used his first keynote speech of the election to focus the campaign on himself personally in a presidential-style push for victory. But noted that Sir Keir and Rishi Sunak are avoiding discussing the elephant in the room. Lord Heseltine wrote, both major parties are afraid of losing votes to the hard right. Labour needs to rebuild its red ball while the Conservatives run scared of reform. However, he argued that almost no major issue can be discussed without references to the subject to the subject, which has in effect dominated British politics since the EU referendum in 2016 and arguably since the Magistrate Treaty in 1992, which shattered John Major's government. Lord Heseltine's case is supported by exclusive polling for the independent by Wakefield and Wilton, which reveals that British voters linked Brexit to two of the biggest problems in the country, the cost of living and immigration. I do agree that some people will think that, but again, as I said, you're not just appealing. This is not a local election, this is a general election. And you have to remember that while some people may be more in tune when it comes to local elections, general election is going to be different. It's going to be a different tiger altogether. While the poll shows that only 1% think that Brexit is the most important issue, it also reveals that the top issue in the economy is the top issue on the economy with 37%. And the third issue is immigration on 15%. Both are tied to leaving the EU. The survey of 1,500 shows 60% feel worse off since the Tories won in 2019 and took the UK out of the EU in 2020, despite better prosperities being promised by Brexiteers, and mere 13% feel better off. Now, I don't know who these 13% are, but they generally need their heads checked. Also, again, like I've said with polls and surveys, take them with a pinch of salt. This is only 1,500 voters, so it's out of our entire population. Some people, again, I've said, not everyone's going to be paying attention and looking at those fine little details. The Conservatives have claimed that the reason for the cost of living crisis and economic downturn was the COVID-19 pandemic, followed by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that caused major shock in worldwide supply chains and forced up inflation. Now, there's absolutely no question. Let's be very, very clear about this, because I really want to put this context in. There is absolutely no question that the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine have had an impact on our economy. No one is denying that, and I don't think anyone will deny that. Yes, of course, they've played a factor into the state of our economy is now. But, I'm sorry, but when you look at other nations, both within the EU and outside the EU, many have moved on and recovered from COVID. Many have adapted to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And yet we are still lagging behind many countries when it comes to growth in comparison to other nations. Regardless of inflation being up and being low. That speaks for itself. One of the lowest GDP growths in the G7. There's no getting around this. This is Conservative government making poor decisions when it comes to the economy. And there would have been ways and mitigations that they could have done to ensure that our economy grows. Like, I don't know, investment in public service, for example. But they haven't done that. And they've just been doing tax cuts after tax cuts. So, yes, outside, there will always be outside global factors that will play a part in Britain's economy. It's a natural thing. It's always going to be a thing. However, the ones who are in the driving seat, the ones who are in power, the ones who have the majorities in Parliament, they are the ones ultimately that can make the decisions on how to take the country forward, how to take the UK forward as a whole. And the Conservatives have been that for 14 years. So there's no getting around this. Yes, not taking away the fact that COVID and the Russian invasion of Ukraine have played a factor. No question. But many countries have adapted or moved on especially, the majority of countries have moved on from COVID. The vast majority have. And obviously many countries are adapting since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So, why haven't we? Answers on a postcard, please. However, the polling findings on immigration may be more troubling for Rishi Sunak as he tries to win over voters with a damning indictment on Brexit. The survey showed that 39% believe illegal immigration is higher because of Brexit compared to 16% lower and 23% similar. On legal immigration, 36% believe Brexit has made it bigger, 14% lower and 27% similar. Asked if it has become a bigger issue because of Brexit, 38% agree it is more of an issue, while 13% believe it's less of an issue. This is despite the Vote Leave slogan of Take Back Control aimed at tightening Britain's borders. Lord Heseltine and others have pointed out that being outside the EU, Britain has been unable to send back migrants coming in small boats and through other means. Yes, like I've said, not having that being outside the EU makes things harder for us to send people back to certain countries. Especially if they're sending them back to France, like I said. because we don't have don't have that agreement with them. It's all well and good saying France should do this, France should do that, France should do that. France don't have to do anything we want, by the way. France don't have to do anything that we want. Unless we have already signed deals and agreements with them, France don't have to do anything we want. So people can scream and shout about France aren't doing this, France aren't doing that. Unless there's agreements in place, France don't have to do anything. And yes, I am aware that we are giving the French a lot of money. But I wouldn't take what GB News are saying about blaming the French on things too seriously. I really shouldn't. And plus, they have the Olympics coming up, so they're going to be prioritising other things, besides immigrants crossing the border to Britain. On a wider piece, he said no issue can be taken without a serious rethink of the last 8 years. He said the state of our economy, defence and environment, the need to level up our society, control immigration and restore Britain's standing in the world. None of these issues can be honestly addressed in isolation from our relationship with Europe, yet Europe is a no-go area. Highlighting immigration, which is seen as a top 3 issues by pollsters in the campaign, he questioned whether there could be a serious debate without discussing Europe. Why cannot the two parties debate immigration in the round? The both contain are 5% of those who might or might not get sent to Rwanda. The Rwanda policy is dead and buried at this point anyway, guys. They are a small part of the near 700,000 net immigration figure, the real elephant in the room. Until we consider the consequences of our farms, care homes, hospitals and universities culling the numbers, all talk of change, the consistent assertion of plans amount to little more than palpable blowing into the wind. Whatever we decide to do, we need to work more closely with our European neighbours who share our experiences. On defence, he warned that the possible impending election of Donald Trump in the US means Britain can no longer rely on NATO for its security needs as it faces more isolationist policies in Washington, D.C. He asked, what if the Republican Party reverts to its position in the 1940s, when it pressed President Roosevelt to promise not to enter the war? He kept that promise until Hitler declared war on America in 1941. Nightmare thought that it would be such a possibility of being seriously addressed. His solution, we should be discussing a closer defensive relationship with Europe. Platitudes don't have much firepower. He argued that the world is failing and Britain can do little alone. About famines and droughts pushing millions of people around the globe from their homes in the face of wars. The peer added, there is brave talk of turning a corner, a plan of working. How can we seriously believe that we can significantly improve our economic situation after severing our connection with our largest and nearest? How do you build Silicon Valley here if for years if you cut yourself off from European research and return to a table as supplement? Our companies must compete with American and Chinese company technologies underpinned by huge defence and space budgets. He insists that it's imperative to turn the general election debate back to Brexit on building on the lies told by Brexiteers and get the leave votes over the line. The Brexit case amounted to a viper's nest of mantras. We want our country back. They need us more than we need them. Bring back control. Get Brexit done. 8 years have passed. Brexiteers have their hands on the tiller all the time. We've had extraordinary spectacles of a minister for exiting the European Union as bad as a minister for common sense. And he questioned what Brexit has achieved. Why is it that so few new trade deals have been done? Why has it not been the promise of bonfire of regulation? The answer is simple. There were no plans. It was a pack of lies. There's no question it was a pack of lies. We know that. We know it was a pack of lies. But like I said, this is about obviously the winning this general election. So there are going to be, like I said, there will be some people obviously in the opposite end of, like I said in this video about how obviously some people will not want to hear it. But yes, there will also be a counter argument, and I'll probably hear it in the comments as well, is that some people do want to hear about Brexit and immigration. Brexit linked to many things, and that's true. People will want to hear it. But the question is, how many people want to hear it? And it is, without a shadow of a doubt, it is a tough area to go to, because you may subvert some voters and you may bring in some voters as well. But I guess until they step in that corner, I don't know. But I'm totally understand the frustration of many people who say that they want to vote Labour or they want to back Labour, but because their position on Brexit, because they don't want to rejoin the single market and whatnot, I'm a bit hesitant of that. And I totally understand your position if you feel that way. I totally do. Lib Dems, obviously, I've spoken about on a separate video, but obviously them kind of sitting on the fence as well doesn't help either. And obviously we know where the Conservatives stand when it comes to Brexit. They're just going to try try and pretend everything la 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 is all perfect and it's all working fine and it's got all happy and glorious. So yeah, I understand. I understand, but it's a tightrope. But I can also understand why the people don't want to talk about it as well. But I can also understand why people who are into politics, who know the stuff, the ins and outs, and why they're saying these politicians should be talking about Brexit and should be telling the public more. I also get that problem too. But it is going to be a factor, like I said, but it's not going to be the factor in the general election, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think Brexit is going to play a factor, or a big factor, or small factor, or no factor at all? What do you guys honestly think about the issues that surrounding Brexit, obviously, and how much of that will play into this general election with all political parties, whether it's Conservative, Labour, Reform, Greens, Lib Dems? Let me know your thoughts, or maybe even for those of you up in Scotland, how obviously, let me know what you guys think here from that point of view, or for those in Wales and Northern Ireland. Let me know what you guys think about how Brexit, the impact of it not being discussed enough within this general election, or more or less. Let me know all your thoughts and more in the comment section down below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble, Facebook, or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.